I've always been fascinated by games with unused and scrapped content, whether it was for time constraints, not fitting with the dev's vision, or placeholders that weren't meant to be added in the final game, and Newgrounds Rumble has a lot of them. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about Newgrounds Rumble unused scrapped content. Most of these can be found in the cutting room floor, in the game files, or in dev interviews. A few things I will not be going over is content the devs has considered, since it's content that didn't make it forward during the development, and the different versions of Newgrounds Rumble from 1.0 to Fancy Pants update since the game was finished and released to the public. First, I want to talk about the well-known unused content in the game. In the game files, there are a lot of unused graphics that never made it in the original game. In the game files, several pink, slightly transparent stage assets can be found. Given their simplistic nature, it's likely these were used for testing. Most of them can be found in the cutting room floor if you want to check all of them out. Up next are obscure graphics. Graphics for a few of the characters' portraits have a bit more to them than you can see in game. These were cropped out in the game to fit with all the other characters' portraits, but you can see them in full in the game files. Also, while not on the cutting room floor, there are other graphics that show the characters without the color backgrounds that I will share. There are three more obscure graphics that weren't on the cutting room floor. First one is this Newgrounds Rumble Pico portrait, which shows his graphic but angled slightly, including his arm holding his sword angled differently. This graphic can be seen in the title screen and versus icon, but in his portrait, it's the same as his original graphic. Convict graphic in versus mode is cropped, but in the game files you can see the full graphic. And finally, fancypantsman graphic as seen in his versus and story mode icon and portrait has his graphic glowing white to make him visible, but in the game files you can see what his original graphic is supposed to look like. This was most likely changed because he was too difficult to see in portrait, so his graphic was made to glow so we could see his portrait and icons better. While I was editing this video, I was able to find another Fancy Pants unused graphic that has his icons not glowing. This graphic is used for the health bar icon, and this one is slightly different because this one is much more straight than compared to the one that is used, which has his icon slightly tilted and glowing. Now for something that is slightly more interesting, which is an unused henchman story mode icon in the game files. Henchman was a secret character in the game alongside Hank in the Madness update. He was a bonus character since he was a clone of Hank but was significantly weaker and had a parry shield like every other character in the game besides Hank. It's interesting that he has a story mode icon since he was a secret character in the versus mode and you were able to get an achievement with him. It's unknown if he was going to have a story mode or not, but considering he has an achievement, it's possible that he was going to have his own story mode until it was scrapped. There were two characters who were going to have different designs during Newgrounds Rumble development. The first one is Newgrounds Rumble Pico, who was going to look exactly like Pico but with a black suit and a different sword. He would eventually turn into the design we know, where he references to the character Picancho than Pico, such as his body being thin to resemble him as a stickman and wearing purple with a golden belt. The only thing that got carried over was the sword, but with a different design.
The thing was, when I designed Picancho, I just wanted him to look like if he was part of the Pico 2 people. So if he so he kind of fit that style. I knew he was more of like a cloud looking design before.
Convict had two different designs during Newgrounds Rumble development. Both designs are lost media, and in the interview, one of the scrapped Convict designs was shared at Louis' website in the tutorial called Frame by Frame and Tweening Part 1 and 2, which concentrates on a sprite for Convict and discusses making loops and seamless sprite sheets that was in archive. Both designs were scrapped and Convict wouldn't get a redesign we know today. Fancypantsman, out of all the characters, has the most amount of scrap content. By most, I just mean two. In the game files, Fancypantsman has an unused Fierce Air attack in the game. It's possible it was replaced by his current Air Fierce attack, which will later appear in future Fancypantsadventure games. And finally, his stage. Fancypantsman was originally supposed to have a stage, just like how the entire cast of Newgrounds Rumble has a stage. -1 even said the final update for Newgrounds Rumble was supposed to be Fancypantsadventure stage, but Brad, the creator of the Fancypantsadventure games and the person responsible for making Fancypants sprites in Newgrounds Rumble, unfortunately wasn't able to finish it on time, and we don't know what the stage looked or could have been. Considering most of Fancypants content in Newgrounds Rumble predates predicts fancypantsadventure World 3, it's possible we could have seen a World 3 stage, but that's just speculation. And here is the big one, the scrap characters. There are 4, technically 5 characters that were planned to be in the base game but were scrapped. One out of the 5 is fancypantsman, who was supposed to be in the base game of Newgrounds Rumble but was scrapped due to Brad unable to finish the sprites on time. However, he was added in an update due to fan demand, which was a rare moment in the early 2000s where a scrap piece of content got added later in an update, since if a piece of content got scrapped, it would either get reworked or get moved into the sequel. But besides fancypantsman, who was added, the other 4 weren't so lucky. To start with the first character who was finished, Tracy. Tracy, just like Newgrounds Rumble, Pico, and Convict, was an original villain made for the game planned for Newgrounds Rumble. But before Newgrounds Rumble, she was an OC made by Lewis, who was going to make her first appearance in a picoschool cartoon where she was obsessed with Pico, but the cartoon was cancelled. Later, Tracy was going to be in an original fighting game with other original characters, which was also cancelled. Her sprites in Rumble were made by Lewis and were 100% finished. She was even promoted at Negative Fun website all the way when the game was in development. However, she was scrapped since it was Lewis' first attempt, since her sprites didn't fit with the other characters' sprites, since the movement were too animated and not suitable for the game. The attacks would be too slow to be usable, causing her to get scrapped. It was an executive decision made by Lewis and received with a lot of runs by Negative One. Tracy's sprite sheet would later be uploaded by Lewis on October 9, 2009 on a forum post called Toxic Jump of Unfinished Work, where Lewis would upload the full sprite sheet for her. However, if you click on the link is missing, and if you go to the Wayback Machine, it wasn't archived, so all we have is a snippet of her sprite that was uploaded by Lewis on Newgrounds. The second scrap character was Sun from dadnme. Sun was originally going to be in the game just by reusing his sprites from dadnme to Newgrounds Rumble. However, Negative One decided to go against Sun inclusion, even though he was given permission by Dan Paladin, the creator behind dadnme and alienhominid, to use the sprites and his characters. Negative One wasn't comfortable reusing Sun sprites since Dan wasn't involved in making Newgrounds Rumble and was only given permission for his characters. It's why alienhominid is in the game, since the sprites were made by Mind Chamber. Negative One was aware this decision would be disliked because Sun was a popular and beloved Newgrounds character, and this made a lot of people upset because it was an easy addition with no drawbacks, since almost half of the Newgrounds Rumble roster reused sprites from other games. Granted, Mind Chamber was involved in the project, but he still reused sprites for P-Bot, Samurai, Pico, and Alloy. Even Tankman had some reused graphics for his original cartoon, and I don't see Johnny Utah front and center involved in Newgrounds Rumble development like Mind Chamber and Lewis, so there was no point of scrapping Sun even if Dan wasn't involved in the development of Newgrounds Rumble, besides giving the okay to use his characters. The third scrap character is Gish. Gish comes from the game.
I'm not going to finish that sentence.
Made by Edmund McMillan. Gish is a character that didn't originate on Newgrounds besides having cameo appearances on other Edmund Flash games. However, his game was so popular with a ton of Newgrounds users back in the day, the character was so popular that the cancelled sequel, Gish 2, was promoted on Newgrounds multiple times. If Gish were to make it in Newgrounds Rumble, he would be considered a guest character. But Gish didn't make it to the base roster and was scrapped due to the sprites not being made on time. It's unknown who have created the sprites, but it's possible Edmund McMillan was supposed to make the sprites, but again, that's just speculation. And the final scrap character is Gil the Psycho Goldfish. And this character is interesting because we have no clue who Gil the Psycho Goldfish is. And the only thing we have is just speculation. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to speculate on who Gil the Psycho Goldfish is. Gil's last name, Psycho Goldfish, there's a similar name to a Newgrounds user, Psycho Goldfish. There is a character in each intro where a fish would appear in each Psycho Goldfish Flash media. We don't know about this character's name. It's likely this character is Gil, but after Newgrounds Rumble release, this exact same character would make an appearance in a game called P-Man the Game, where Gil is an antagonist in the game. And also Fish Cannon Prototype, I guess. Okay, so when I was editing this video, I was able to find more info about Gil on the Newgrounds Rumble crossover wiki page. So it turns out, Gil still doesn't have an origin. But what I found is interesting. Gil has a lot of appearances in a lot of Flash games that predates Newgrounds Rumble. Some are just cameos like Mini Putt and RPS Blockade where he just does nothing. But there is one game where you could play as him, and that is from Serious Santa, which secretly has other guest characters as well, such as Pico, P-Bot, and alienhominid. So we have a character who is both a villain but is also a hero? Again, Gil has no origin. He just goes to other Newgrounds Flash media, whether it's as a threat, a playable character, or just a random guy that is just in the background. So for all the bits of info we know, Gil would have been an antagonist in Newgrounds Rumble, just like Rumble Picanjo, Convict, and Tracy. Unlike the trio, he would have been a villain that wasn't an original picoschool villain and would have been a villain for a lot of the non-picoschool characters. But as you all guessed, he was grabbed due to time constraints. It's unknown who would have made the sprites for him, but it's possible the user Psycho Goldfish could have made the sprites for him, but that is just speculation again. Thank you so much for watching this video. This video was made for the Newgrounds Rumble 19th anniversary, and I wanted to make a special video for its special anniversary. I want to give a huge shout out to the Newgrounds Rumble crossover wiki page for finding info surrounding this game. Without the Newgrounds Rumble wiki page, I would not have known about Gil's other appearances, so I want to give a huge shout out to the Newgrounds Rumble crossover wiki page for finding as much info as possible for this obscure character. I do have other video ideas in the future for this game. I do hope I can make some more videos surrounding this game in the future.